All right, we are here in the chambers. Everybody's ready? All right, let's commence with our council meeting. This is a special council meeting this evening. Thank you to all members of council for attending and members of our staff that are joining us both in the chambers and those that are joining us virtually online for this special council meeting. This is a public planning meeting, and this meeting has several items that are in the public meeting category. So we have a simple agenda to approve. First of all, to members of council. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated May 25, 2022 as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder on the motion? The Deputy Mayor and Councillor Leishman, thank you. Any additions, subtractions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. That carries. Item 2 is our disclosure, pecuniary interest, and general nature thereof. Anybody have any disclosures to declare at this time? All right, seeing none, then we will carry on with the meeting. If anything comes up, of course, please bring it forward to the chair and we will handle it. And speaking of the chair, as is our procedure at Clearview Township, the chair of the public meeting portion of our meetings is generally handed off to the Deputy Mayor. So Deputy Mayor Burton is here. So Deputy Mayor Burton, at this point for item number 3, I'll pass the chair to you to conduct the meeting, and I can conclude the meeting after you're done. Good luck.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome to all back into chambers. We will now initiate the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda. We invite you to comment on the applications being presented tonight and to engage in the process with us. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview on an application being discussed this evening, please email the planning staff member that is handling this application. Their email will be provided in their presentation. Please be advised that your comment or request to be notified will form part of the public record. Your communication and any personal information therein will be made available to the public unless you expressly requested removal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the township with respect to the proposed applications before the decision is made or a bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal unless, in the opinion of the board, there is a reasonable grounds to do so. The following public meetings will involve a brief presentation by our planning staff, an opportunity for the applicant or their agent to present their application, a period for public comments or questions, and an opportunity for questions by council. We will now begin the meeting with respect to file number 2022-027-ZB 5328 County Road 9 of this evening's agenda. Planning staff will now start with the brief presentation concerning the application. And I believe that Ms. Workman is with us to go ahead. It's up to you, Ms. Roslyn. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I'm just going to take a minute and share my screen with you to get my presentation. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can, Roslyn.
Okay, great. Thank you. So tonight we're at a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment, and the file number is 2022-027-ZB, and it's for the property 5328 County Road 9 in New Lowell. This is the subject lands. They are outlined in a hashed gray and black hatched mark. And of course, they're described as 5328 County Road 9, New Lowell. Again, the subject lands, which are outlined in red and form a bit of an L shape. The existing policy framework is that the current Township of Clearview official plan designation on the lands is residential. The current zoning bylaw category is residential large lot, or RS1. This shows the subject lands outlined in a red box, and they are designated residential. And this shows the existing zoning bylaw map. Again, the subject lands are outlined in red, and they are zoned residential large lot, or RS1. The proposal. The application proposes to zone the lands from residential large lot or RS1 to residential low density exception RS2-8 and residential low density exception RS2-9. The owners will also apply for a consent application. The existing house will be severed from the frontage on County Road 9. The existing house will be severed and have frontage on County Road 9. The new vacant lot will be created with frontage on Clarendon Street, and the proposed new lot will be serviced by water and private septic system. The two exception numbers will apply to the two separate proposed lots. As I said, the application does propose to zone the lands from residential large lot RS1 to residential low density exception RS2-8 and residential low density exception RS2-9. The exception 8 represents the following and has an existing house on the proposed property. So the exception 8 will recognize a smaller interior side yard where the bylaw requires 6 meters and the existing house is 3.3 meters. And it will also allow the development on partial services. Exception 9 will recognize a smaller lot frontage where the bylaw requires 18.9 meters and the proposed exception, because this frontage of this lot will be 16.5 meters. It will also recognize a smaller lot area where the bylaw requires 750 square meters and the proposed exception, because this lot will only be 668 meters squared. And it will also allow development on partial services. This is a site plan showing the existing lot, which is in the L shape. And it also shows the proposed first lot, which is in green and has the existing house. And it shows the proposed vacant lot that will be created in red. It also shows where a proposed building envelope will be located on that newly proposed lot and where a septic system will be seen. And in this map, north is facing up. Notice in circulation. Notice of the subject zoning bylaw has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on May the 5th of 2022. And that was done through mailing out of notices as well as posting a sign on the property. Details of this application and supporting materials have also been made available to the public and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. This is a circulation map and it shows the subject lands in a red box, and the yellowish properties shown here are the properties that are within 120 meters of the subject lands and have received a mailed out notice of public meeting. This is the public comment stage, and at this time for this file, planning staff have not received any public comments. This is contact information for myself, Rosalind Workman. You can email comments to myself, rworkman@clearview.ca, or you can give me a call, 705-428-6230, extension 248. And this slide just outlines the review process and where we're at currently with the public meeting. Is where we're at tonight. Staff will consider comments received. Then staff will make a recommendation report to council. Council will either approve or deny the application. There will then be an appeal period. If there is no appeal received, then the decision does come into force and effect. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Rosalind. I understand that Ms. Miriam Vasny, the applicant's agent, will be making a brief presentation as well.
I believe she will. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, is she with us?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. Yes, Miriam has entered into the Zoom meeting. She's just turned on her camera right now. Miriam, would you like me to share your presentation for you?
Yes, please.
Okay, just a moment, and then you can let me know to move to the next slides.
Okay.
Okay, please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Miriam Basti. I'm a land use planner and I'm here representing the owners of the property on this zoning bylaw amendment application. Next slide, please. As Rosalind mentioned, the purpose of the rezoning is in advance of a proposed consent application that will create one new residential lot on the underutilized rear portion of the entire property, which is outlined in red. And well, I don't know what exactly it is. I think it was an old pool. That is no longer there, so the property is vacant. Next slide, please. I'm just going to go through very briefly of the governing documentation. And the first is the provincial policy statement, which the proposed development is consistent with PPS. It efficiently uses an underutilized lot, will provide a housing option through intensification, and provide appropriate marketable housing type and size of lot. The property is within a settlement area, and it will use existing infrastructure, which is the municipal water, roads, schools, recreation, and other services provided by the municipality. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello?
Yep, we're there.
Oh, there it is. The proposed development is also consistent with the growth plan in that, again, it efficiently uses land. It provides intensification on an underutilized property, and it will provide the achievement of a complete community. And again, it utilizes existing infrastructure and public service facilities already in place. Next slide, please. The development maintains the intent and direction of the County of Simcoe official plan in that it will provide a compact urban form and efficient use of land again. It fronts onto the municipal road network and will be serviced by existing municipal water supply and private septic system. Next slide, please. Excuse me. The proposed development also conforms to the Township of Clearview official plan in that it represents residential intensification. It will maintain the general character of the area. It efficiently utilizes the existing infrastructure. It does front onto 2 public roads, and it is also close proximity to existing community facilities. Next slide, please. The Township of Clearview zoning bylaw is approximately 16 years old at this point. The RS1, so the large lot zone, was placed on the subject lands and a majority of the subject surrounding properties. Based on the Simcoe County GIS mapping system, most of the properties on the north and south side of County Road 9 do not and never did meet the 22 minimum lot frontage and 1,400 square meter lot area required under the RS1 zone. And I have spoken with municipal planning staff. It really is unknown as to why this particular zone was used on these properties. So the chart below shows we're proposing to change the properties to the RS2 zone with exceptions. So the RS2 provisions are listed under the required column. The severed lot is what we're providing, and the retained lot is what is provided. The exception for the exterior minimum side yard for the existing lot is already existing. It's at 3.3, and required exterior side yard under the RS2 zone is 6 meters. Next slide, please. So in summary, the proposed zoning bylaw will recognize the lot frontage and area of the proposed severed parcel, which is outlined in red within the RS2 zone. It will permit this parcel to be serviced on partial services. And it will also recognize the exterior side yard setback of the retained parcel outlined in green. And as Rosalind mentioned, also because we are changing from the RS1 zone to the RS2, it will also permit the retained parcel outlined in green to be on partial servicing. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment conforms to all four governing documents, including the Township of Clearview zoning bylaw as proposed to be amended. So in summary, the proposed bylaw does have merit, is in the public interest, and does constitute good planning. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you for that. So is the applicant on deck at all?
Yes.
Does the applicant themselves wanted to make any comments, or?
I spoke with them earlier. They felt they really had nothing else to add to either Rosalind or mine presentations.
Okay, very good.
Unless you have questions for them, then I'm sure they'd be more than happy to accommodate.
Right, okay, thank you. Can the clerk please advise if there's anyone who has provided requests to make an oral submission that are in the waiting room?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. No public participants for an oral submission.
Okay, thank you for that, Madam Clerk. Is there any counselor, any member of council that has any questions, comments they want to make? I'm looking for hands. Councillor Patterson.
Been a long time. Huh?
Yeah.
You can call me Tom.
Tom.
The just getting to understand the lots, the lot abutting on the east side, 5324. It's tight. I know it's a separate resident. Is it? I'm assuming it's a separate and distinct residence. It's not part of 5328.
Rosalind, did you want to respond to that comment or that question?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. The property to the east, it would be a separate lot with a separate house on it, correct?
And the only reason I'm asking is it's very tight, but also it looks very wooded, and I thought everyone was on septic. So I just wondered how that was done. It is compact for sure. And I think I heard I think I heard the presentation say that the pool is gone on the subject lot, the septic lot, the severed lot. Is that correct? So it is all vacant.
Yes.
And so there's adequate room for septic.
Yes, the septic was designed by a septic contractor.
Yeah, I have no objection to what we're doing. It just seems pretty tight, and I really had a question on the.
Is there any other member of council that has a question, comment? Yes, Councillor Lamers.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'm just wondering why the majority of the houses in the subdivisions are all 12 to 1,400 square feet, and why they're going with a 1,600 square foot on a smaller lot.
I think that's a question for Rosalind.
I can answer that as well if you'd like.
Okay, please go ahead.
On the severed lot, which is outlined in red, the building envelope outlined is proposed. It's based on exterior or interior side yard setbacks, front yard setbacks, and just to be in front of the septic system so that there is an area at the rear of the house to for amenity area. It doesn't mean that the house will be fully built out on this building envelope. And in my discussions with the owners, I think they're planning on probably about a 13 to 14 and a half 1,450 square foot home or 1,300 square foot home. And it's only going to be, I believe if I recall correctly, it's going to be 1 story. Now, Kyla and Tim Armstrong, the owner of the property, they are here if you'd like a further clarification on that.
I think if I could just add some of this to Council Lamers, that 1,600 is the building envelope. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean it has to be 1,600 feet. It means that's the maximum square footage they were allowed, considering the setbacks that are required and all that sort of. So we don't have a restriction on what square footage can be built. It's based on the building envelope, based on what the setbacks and the side setbacks are, that allows the size of the building envelope itself.
Yeah.
Does that answer your questions, Councilor Amos? Did you have any other questions?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else on council have a question? Going once, going twice. Okay, I think that brings that to an end as far as council. So this concludes the public meeting with respect to file number 2022-027ZB, 5328 County Road 9 of this evening's agenda. We thank all who attended and provided comments for their interest in this matter. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. No decisions will be made tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Miriam, for your input, and we appreciate that. And we're now going to move on to.
Thank you.
We're now going to move on to public meeting with respect to file number 2022-024ZB, 21 Locke Avenue of this evening's agenda. Planning staff will now start with their brief presentation concerning the application. And I think Miss Roslyn is on deck again. So please proceed, Roslyn.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I will just take a second to share my screen. Can everyone see that? I'll take that as a yes.
Yep.
So tonight we're at the public meeting for zoning bylaw amendment 2022-024ZB, and it is 21 Locke Avenue in Stayner. This is showing the subject lands, and they are outlined in black and gray hatch. Again, 21 Locke Avenue in Stayner. This shows the subject lands outlined in red. The existing policy framework is that the current Township of Clearview official plan designation is residential special policy, and the current zoning bylaw category is residential medium density, or RS4. This is the existing official plan map. Again, the subject lands are outlined in red, and you can see that they are designated in a purple color, which is special policy residential. The existing zoning map shows the property in red, and it is showing it as an RS4 zone, or a residential medium density. The proposal. The application proposes to zone the lands from residential medium density RS4 to residential multi low density exception, or RS3-16. The exception 16 represents the following: to recognize a smaller lot frontage for a single detached dwelling where the bylaw requires 13.5 meters of frontage. The exception in this case will propose a lot frontage of 12 meters. In addition, the subject lands will also be subject to a consent application, which will divide the lot into two smaller lots. This is a site plan showing the proposed lot, which is to be divided into two 40-foot or 12-meter frontages. And you can see the line in the middle there dividing. Notice and circulation. Notice of the subject zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on May the 5th, 2022 by mailing out of a notice and posting a sign on the subject property. Details of this application and supporting materials have been made available to the public and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. This is a circulation map showing the subject lands outlined in red, and then the yellowish color properties that are highlighted are the properties that have been mailed out the public meeting notice, and they are located within 120 meters of that subject land. This is the time in the public meeting that I would share public comments received, and at this time, planning staff have received no public comments. Again, my contact information is rworkman@clearview.ca, and you can also contact me at 705-428-6230, and my extension is 248. Just to outline the review process, currently we're at the public meeting stage. Staff will consider comments received. Staff will then make a recommendation report to the Township Council. Council will either approve or deny the application, and then there will be an appeal period. If there is no appeal received, the decision will come into force and effect. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosalind, for that. And I understand the applicant is present but does not wish to make a statement at this time, but is available for questions. Is that correct? Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. Yes, Adam Steves has turned on his camera. He doesn't have a presentation, but he has made himself available if council or any of the members of the public have any questions for him.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please advise if there's anyone who has provided a request to make an oral submission that are in the waiting room who would like to speak to this application? Questions may be directed to or responded to by the applicant, their agent or staff, but should be addressed through the chair. That's me. Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. No members of the public wish to make an oral statement at tonight's meeting.
Is there a member of council have any questions? Councillor Leishman, please proceed.
Thank you. Roz, the picture where the pink line is outlining the property, are you saying that that property is going to be divided into two properties? Like there's not a property beside it that they're talking about. It's just this one piece. They're going to divide it into two. Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
And I might
Sorry.
just give you all a little bit of background because Deputy Director Dan Pro has attended the meeting tonight. As some of you may be aware, there is a public works project that will be happening on this part of Loch. And it has sort of triggered some of this more intensification of this area because of the fact that we will be bringing in some water and sewer services to this area. And I didn't know if Dan had anything more to add to that, but that's partly why we've seen a bit of an intensification in this area.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from anybody? Yes, Councillor Walker. I want to keep calling everybody by the first name, but Councillor Walker, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a
Councillor Bob.
quick question. Most of those homes on Loch are built on roughly about an 80-foot frontage. So all of a sudden, we're going to allow infills with 40-foot frontages. I thought part of the idea when we allow development is to blend in with the surrounding neighborhood. And I'm not seeing that cutting a lot in half with 40-foot frontage kind of blends in with the houses next door that are 80-foot frontages. And that whole street is based on 80-foot frontages or thereabouts. So, and I'll have that same comment for number 11 Loch because that's the same setup with that one. So I just not sure that, cutting them in half, I know because water and sewer are coming and I know it allows financial gain, but I'm not sure that the neighborhood should be subject to infill that tight.
Rosalind, did you want to respond to that comment? Please.
I believe Mara has joined, so thank you.
Okay, Mayor, sorry, Mayor, I didn't see you up in the top corner there. Please proceed, Mrs. Burton, please proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. I just certainly hear Councillor Walker's concern. Just want to let council know that this area, or at least quite a lot of this area, was zoned perhaps back in 2006 to the residential medium density 4. And what that allows right now is fourplexes, townhouses, and triplexes on this property. And the minimum lot, the minimum front for each one, I think is somewhat less. So I think there was a concern from staff, exactly to Councillor Walker's concern, that we wanted to ensure that the development in the area wasn't necessarily going to be putting townhouses on this property. So the proposal, although it is more dense than the neighboring lots on 80-foot frontages, it won't be as dense as what could currently be applied for under the current RS4. So this is actually a down zone from what would otherwise allow townhouses, fourplexes, and triplexes to allow 2 dwellings, 1 per lot, 2 single detached dwellings. That provides a bit of clarity. And of course, we're here at this public meeting just to receive information. We're not making any recommendations at this time, but did want to provide council with that background.
Yes. So, and are you comfortable with that answer, Councillor Walker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Is there anybody else have any questions? Because I would like to make a comment, if I may, just to those people who are watching this procedure tonight. Is that this is strictly an information night. We still have, the council still has to get a recommendation and has to vote on it. And once that's done, and then there still has to be an application to the Committee of Adjustment to pass and agree to the severances or consent. Consent means the severance. So we're just in the very early stages. So I just thought I'd add that for information. Is there anybody else who had some questions about this particular file? No, going once, going twice. Okay. I've been through that. This concludes the public meeting with respect to file number 2022-024-ZB21 Lock Avenue of this evening's agenda. We thank all who attend and provide comments for their interest in this matter. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. No decision being made tonight. We will now proceed on to the next public meeting. We will begin with meeting respect to file number 2022-029-ZB 34 Lock Avenue. And I believe that you're earning your pay tonight, Ms. Workman. You're on again. So.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Not that I believe you always earn your pay, but just you're doing extra duty tonight. Please proceed.
Thank you. Just give me a second and I'll share my screen with you. And I'm assuming we can all see the screen. Tonight we're here for a public meeting, zoning bylaw amendment 2022-029-ZB, and it's for Lock Avenue, 34 Lock Avenue in Stayner. This is showing the subject lands, 34 Lock Avenue in Stayner, and it is shown in the black and gray hatched. The subject lands again are shown in red on these maps, 34 Lock Avenue. Existing policy framework. So the current Township of Clearview official plan designation is special policy residential, and the current zoning bylaw category is residential low density, or RS2. This shows the existing official plan map, and the property is outlined in red. It is shown as a special policy residential area, which is a purple color. Existing zoning bylaw map shows that the current property is RS2 zoned. In the proposal. So the application proposes to zone the lands from residential low density, or RS2, to residential multiple low density, RS3. The subject lands will also be subject to a consent application, which will divide the lots into 2 lots. The application for consent, however, will not be considered until there is a water allocation available. The residential low density or RS3 permitted uses include single detached dwellings. In this case, this shows the way the proposed lots will be divided, and they will be divided further into 2 50-foot or 15-meter frontage lots. So again, this is Lock Avenue down here, and the lot will get divided in half. Excuse me, notice and circulation. So notice of the subject zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on May the 5th, 2022, by mailing out of notices and by posting a sign on the property. Details of the application and the supporting materials have been made available to the public and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. Again, this shows the circulation map. The subject lands are outlined in red, and the properties that were mailed out notices of the public meeting are outlined in a yellowish color here, and that indicates the 120 meters from the subject property. This is the stage where we would speak about public comments received, and at this point, staff have not received any public comments. Contact information for myself is rworkman@clearview.ca, or you can call at 705-428-6230, and my extension is 248. In terms of the review process, tonight we're having the public meeting. Staff will then consider comments received. Then there will be a staff recommendation report to council. Council will either approve or deny the application, and then there is an appeal period. If there is no appeal, then the decision will come into force and effect. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Rosalind. And I understand the applicants is Mr. and Mrs. Vandermeer are here, but do not wish to make a comment, but are available for questions. Is that correct?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. Yes, Ari Vandermeer is here and is in the meeting. Ari, did you just want to say something to council? Oh, Ari, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay, there we go.
Please proceed.
I'm here only to, if anybody had any questions.
Oh, okay. So, okay, well, we will, let me go to the clerk first. Can the clerk please advise if there's anyone who has provided a request to make an oral submission that are in the waiting room tonight?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. No members of the public have come forward to make an oral submission.
Okay. Is there a member of council that has a question? Councillor McKechnie, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. So for Rosalind, through you to Rosalind, the properties to the east of this subject property, they appear to already have been divided into two. Is that right? So this subject property would be pretty much the same as the properties to the east?
Yes, you are correct. There were actually, I think, two sets of properties, and I'm gapping the date of when we did that, but they were divided, and that is exactly how this lot is proposed to proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of council have any questions? Going once, going twice, going for the third time. This concludes the public meeting with respect to file number 2022-029-ZB 34 Lock Avenue of this evening's agenda. We thank all who attended and provide comments for their interest in this matter. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. No decisions being made tonight. We will now proceed with the next public meeting. We will now begin with the public meeting with respect to file number 2022-030-ZB 11 Lock Avenue. And guess who's up for this one? Go ahead. You're on the floor.
Okay, thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Madam Roslin, you're on the floor. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I'll just share my screen. So tonight we're here for another zoning bylaw amendment, and the file is 2022-030-ZB, and it is for 11 Locke Avenue in Stainer. So this map shows the subject lands, 11 Locke Avenue in Stainer, and the lands are outlined in black and gray hatch. The subject lands are outlined in red here, and again, 11 Locke Avenue in Stainer. Existing policy framework. So the current township official plan, Clearview official plan designation is special policy residential, and the current zoning bylaw category is residential large lot or RS1. Again, this is showing the existing official plan map, outlining the lot in red, and the special policy residential designation is shown in purple. The existing zoning bylaw map is showing the subject lands outlined in red, and they are currently zoned residential large lot or RS1. The proposal. So the application proposes to zone the lands from residential large lot or RS1 to residential multiple low density exception. So RS3-15. The exception 15 represents the following: to recognize a smaller lot frontage for a single detached dwelling where the bylaw requires 13.5 meters of frontage. The exception will propose a lot frontage of 12 meters. The subject lands will also be subject to a consent application, which will divide the lot into 2 smaller lots, and the owners plan to build 2 single detached homes on each of the lots. This was, the next slide does show that the lot will be divided into 2 40-foot or 12-meter front lot frontages. And this actually shows an example of a building envelope on each of the properties, with porch, driveway, and then of course area in the back for amenity space. Notice and circulation. So notice of the subject zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on May the 5th, 2022. That was done through mailing out of notices of the public meeting, as well as posting a sign on the subject property. Details of the application and supporting materials have been made available to the public and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. This map does show the circulation map, and it shows the subject lands outlined in red. The yellowish lands are those lands that were mailed out the notice, and they do represent being 120 meters from the subject lands. This stage, I would let you know of any public comments that have been received, and at this time, township staff have not received any comments. Contacting me, you can either do that through email, rworkman@clearview.ca, or through phone 705-428-6230, and my extension is 248. In terms of where we are tonight in the review process, right now we're having the public meeting, and after the public meeting, staff will consider all the comments received, and staff will prepare a recommendation report for Township Council. Council will either approve or deny the application, and then there will be an appeal period. If there is no appeal period, if there's no appeal, then the application will come into force and effect. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Rosalind. That was a good night's work. Thanks. Appreciate your efforts on all these files. I understand that Mr. Vandermeer is still with us. Should anybody have any questions to be answered, can the clerk advise if there is anyone who has provided a request to make an oral submission that are in the waiting room?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. No members of the public have come forward to make an oral submission during tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does a member of council wish to make a comment or question? Councillor Lamers and Councillor Leach. Sorry, Deneen. Sorry,
I don't feel bad. No.
Like I said, I just want to use people's first names. Okay, go.
Thank you.
John, go.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If all these lots pass, are they going to be coming back to council at a later date to get setback reduction in setbacks?
Rosalind, do you want to ask that? I could probably answer that question. It would have to come before the Committee of Adjustment. So, but are you aware of any intentions to change the setbacks?
No, not at this time. So if the applicants had decided to change a setback, we would have been considering that as one of the exceptions, as we are tonight looking at changing the frontage of the lots proposed. Unless they decide to build another house, larger on the lot, I believe they will be able to meet all the other provisions of the proposed zone that is proposed. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but that would also come under to get their severance. It would come under a minor variance as well to do that, which would be another application at the Committee of Adjustment. So, does that answer your question there,
Yes.
Councillor Lamers? Okay, Councillor Deneen, please.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor to Rosalind. Rosalind, just a question. The 34 Lock Avenue was subject to water allocation. 11 Lock Avenue doesn't have that stipulation with it?
Yes, you're correct. My understanding is that the project that is currently underway for Lock Avenue will end at 23 Lock, and that is a project that will bring water and sewer to like in front of the school there, and it will end at lot 23. And that means that the lots then east of that, lot 23, will no longer, like they require water service, and we're given a water service at the I believe a couple years ago, but because they're increasing their sort of their density there, and because we have a bit of a water allocation limitation right now, they will have to wait until there is either agreements made and signed, or there is an additional water allocation provided. So, and I see Deputy Director of Public Works Dan has turned on his camera to help me with this question.
Yes, Deputy Director, please.
Yes, sorry, Rosalind. I was trying to find my start sharing video. Mr. Chair, just like to address that question with regards to the service allocation, and we felt that because we have some reserved capacity, and this is a township, the project for Lock from Highway 26 to Jonathan Court, or just east of Jonathan Court, is a township initiated project, and we felt that us initiating that project, and there's already those properties on water for the majority, other than a few that are subject to today's meeting, that we would permit allocation for that section. Rosalind is correct. I think it was 2018. The I'll call it the eastern part. So from Jonathan east to Scott Street, that was done under bylaw. They already had allocation. Now this is just building. So I think it's number 34 is building on that. So we felt that until we have the water solution rectified, that we're going to be a little bit more selective when we release water allocation. But because the western part of this street is a township initiated project, that we would permit or we'd give allocation for a few of those severances. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And Councillor Patterson, please. Oh, Okay, well, I will get to you, Councillor McCackney, Councillor.
Well, mine, I think is straightforward. I had the same question with regards to the accommodation we made for those people in 2018 that want to get servicing. And some did pay, and we put it into a reserve fund for this eventuality. But does the fact that some of these lots, like 34, for example, what you referred to as the eastern portion, now being divided into 2 lots, is that changing the calculation that we made back then? And does it affect the previous owners?
Deputy Director, could you respond, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 34 has allocation. The second lot for 34, whatever number that becomes, if the severance is granted, does not. So, again, but being somewhat selective until we have the water sourcing rectified, we felt that a hold on that property would be sufficient or needed. So, if the severance is granted, there's nothing saying that the one half of 34 could not develop. And I'm not sure if that is in play with planning department, or if they're putting a hold on both. I'm not sure.
Does that answer your question?
Well, more discussion when it comes back to council.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Roslin.
Oh, thanks. I just thought I would clarify with Dan. And I might also add that at the time in 2018, the current owners of the lot, which happened to be Vandermeer's, didn't actually own that parcel. It was another party, and they at the time decided not to venture in and add another piece of, or another allocation to that parcel. And so that's also part of the complication to this application. But Dan's completely right. There's some options going forward with the zoning. We can either put a hold symbol on the property, or we could just not proceed with the consent application. In either case, it won't affect the parcel or the building of one house on this property where there is an existing water allocation, if the current owners want to do that.
And it's sorry, Mr. Chair, just another clarification. It goes back to us being consistent with everybody that's coming to the table, and the need for actually installing an extra service. So 34 has a service. It would need to install a second service to the severed lot, and that is just us being consistent with everybody that's been coming forward. That if you have a service at your lot line currently, or if within the last 2 years, then you've been able to build or do what you need to. It's adding those extra services on to the system where we have been consistent to say, not right now. We're not allowing it, and until we get the water system, the water sourcing figured out. The exception is this project that we're doing this year for Lock Avenue, the western end, I'll call it. Because it's a township initiated project that we were permitting those installation of services and a few extras, because the western part, so west of Jonathan Court, does not have sanitary service right now. We are installing that as part of a project that council will see very shortly. And there's already water along that frontage.
Councillor Patterson, you had a follow-up question?
Yeah, I'm satisfied with the answer now, but as these things come back, either individually or together to council for final approval, could we have this kind of review of the servicing plan? So that some of these lots may come to council, like lot 11 may come separately from lot 34. But the servicing plan affects them all. So could we have a servicing plan with the first one or all of them when they come back to council? Along the lines that it sounds like you've got a plan, just.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So in keeping with Councillor Walker's comments earlier about the concern that by approving these smaller lots, we may be losing the character or the charm of the street and such. So I have a question to Rosalind. So we just discussed 21 Lock, and my understanding is that that is currently RS4, which would mean that if the severance or the smaller lots are not approved, that the owner could still put on there a triplex or a semi-detached house. Whereas this lot is RS1, and which means that if it's not approved, that the owner has to put a detached house on, that he's not allowed to put a semi-detached or a triplex. Is that correct?
Ms. Rosman, could you answer the respond, please?
Yeah, so right now the RS1 only allows for a single, and I believe you could also have an apartment within that house. But the idea is that they would like to build 2 single detached homes that are separately conveyable. And the RS3 zone would allow that.
Okay.
With the exception of the frontage needing a bit of a reduction, and that it can't meet the 13.5 meters.
Okay, thank you. And a follow-up, if I may?
Yes, please.
So why is this currently zoned RS1 and the other one that we just dealt with at 21 Lock is RS4? I mean, they're pretty close together on the same street there. What's the reasoning behind that?
That is a really good question, and probably not one that I can answer because I wasn't the author of the zoning bylaw in 2006. I can make maybe an educated guess that maybe at the time that the people who were writing the bylaw were thinking that in this area where the RS4 is actually located, there's quite a bit of land, and some of it does include the missionary church lands. My thinking was that maybe they thought they could actually get a lot more density there, in that if people bought up lots or, got together and looked at a planned sort of subdivision or condominium, let's say, that maybe they thought they could get a little bit more density in this area. But I'm not really sure. And then keeping in mind that this was also the RS1 areas show that are on lots that needed a septic. So the RS1 is a larger lot, which, you certainly don't want any more houses or more density because you don't want that many septics. So I think it was more just a reflection of what some of the housing that was already there on a septic system, and then not, wanting it to, making it a little bit harder for people to go in and make a higher density type of development, if I might, because it would be hard on a septic system to do that, to have so many septics in this particular area. Keeping in mind that this whole area has always been sort of designated special policy residential. And that's because it didn't have any municipal waters or sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Is there anybody else on council that has a question? Once, going twice, third time. Okay, this concludes the public meeting with respect to file 2022-030ZB 11 Lock Avenue of this evening's agenda. We thank all who attended and provide comments for their interest in this matter. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. We will now proceed with the next public meeting, which will follow the same process. And we'll begin the public meeting with respect to file number 2022-033 ZB. It's a housekeeping amendment. And planning staff, and I believe Director Burton is going to be presenting this report to us.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good evening, council and staff and members of the public. Unfortunately, I'm sure I'm not going to be quite as quick as Rosalind was, but I'll do my very best. So this file number is 2022-033 ZB. And so we'll just start with some general amendments. We tried to keep it not too big a housekeeping amendment for you this time. And so one of the changes that we added was for bed and breakfasts. We do have in the definition that it's not a short-term rental. We do have definitions for short-term rentals, but then we thought also in the general provisions, we would just add that it's not a short-term rental. So we wanted to make that super clear. One of the other things that we've kind of hit our head against is that in the agricultural zone, you can go as low as 1.8 meters for a pool, but you can't in the rural zone or vice versa. And we wanted to make sure that we were treating them the same. So we're looking at reducing that. Oh, sorry, both of them actually. We're looking at reducing that to 1.8 meters so that we can accommodate pools for smaller lots in the rural and agricultural area. We're also looking at reducing the front yard setback from the rural zone from 15 meters to 10 meters to match the agricultural zone. So that's the one that we want to line up together. And in the agricultural zone, we want to clarify the setback for farm produce sales, outlets, and accessory farm winery and cidery. Right now, it has a setback that just says from any residential use, which isn't very clear. So we've been considering, do we take that to the lot line? We're also still considering whether that should go to the residential house itself, so that we're not too, because these things are in agricultural areas, we want to make sure that we're not too onerous, that somebody wouldn't be able to do that on a lot where the house may be quite a far distance from the side lot line. So we're still thinking on that one, that maybe the clarification would be the setback to the house rather than to the lot line. But certainly it needs to be clarified. Another thing is that right now the zoning bylaw, you almost don't see this in the zoning bylaw when you're looking at it. In hindsight, I kind of wish I put the page up for you, because there's these little asterisks beside certain uses in the agricultural zone. And then at the bottom, kind of it's almost like in fine print, but it's not. It says that only those uses are allowed on lots that were created from a surplus farming house, like from a farm amalgamation. The intent here is to replace this little asterisk and this little sort of, small wording that you wouldn't necessarily see, and make it more clear and upfront so that it's not lost. Basically identifying that for those lots that are less than 1.5 hectares in the agricultural zone, that the uses are limited to conservation, passive recreation, single detached, accessory dwelling unit, home occupation, home industry, and single accessory apartment. So that is what's happening now. It's just that it's done in a different way. The other thing we're looking to do is add fire hall as a permitted use to the institutional zone, which we think is something that should be there. And we also found, and this was something we stumbled upon, and I think this might actually go back to 2006, where we have two C1-6 zones in Stayner. Some of you might remember that we had done a zoning amendment back in, I think it was 2016, where we made some adjustments to the Huron and Ontario Street zone, but we didn't change the zone number. It was always there, but we didn't actually realize that that number had been used twice. So we're just fixing it. So all that's happening is that the number is going to change to a C18. We're not changing any of the zone provisions or the permitted uses. So there's really no impact. It's just a number change. The other thing that we've had some challenges with is the words that are being misinterpreted in our zoning bylaw as enclosed breezeway. It's kind of it's almost a misnomer to call something an enclosed breezeway. But what we have decided to do is to change that word to enclosed corridor so that it's more descriptive and people don't misinterpret it as being an open breezeway. We're also looking at amending the definition of passive recreation to be more clear so that for one thing, it doesn't allow the construction of buildings, but the intent there is that it not allow buildings. The passive recreation is passive and not reliant upon buildings, and basically that it's not a commercial use. Further looking to clarify the definition for semi-detached dwellings so that it represents the vertical division of two dwellings. So normally you would see that perhaps at the garage or completely attached. Actually, in hindsight, we're having some rethink on that as well, because we've had situations where what we don't want to encourage is somebody to have an accessory apartment that's fully and separately detached from the house, and it's just attached by a enclosed corridor. So you actually have two separate houses, but instead of being this way, it's this way. And the reason for that is because accessory apartments have to be integrated into the dwelling so that it looks like a single family dwelling. So we may nix that one just for a heads up. We have a duplication in the zoning bylaw that's inconsistent with the accessible parking provisions. And so that is we actually have regulations in the definitions, which normally you wouldn't do. A definition should be a definition, not a regulation. And it's no longer consistent. So we're removing it. And the regular accessible parking provisions in the general provisions will still apply. Another thing that we're looking to do, which probably should have never been included in the first place, was the fact that in the lot of record definition, there are certain plans that are not considered to be a lot of record. And Plan 111 was put in there, but it actually should be removed because this is the Sydenham Trail area, and that is designated in our official plan as a special policy area for residential. So we're taking that out so as not to cause problems with people getting permits once they have road frontage in that area. So finally, the other thing we're doing is we're recognizing a lot of legally existing dwellings on the following properties. And I will give you, go through all the little maps of that. I should have probably done air photos of that so you could actually see the dwellings there and how we are going around the dwellings and giving a little bit of amenity space for each one. And I do note that I will catch up with council on the Conservation Authority comments on this when we get to that section. So these are the following site-specific amendments. And as you know, I think in the last couple of housekeeping amendments, we have taken legally existing dwellings and their garages out of the environmental protection area. Don't feel that it's appropriate that they be located in an EP zone when they are legally existing. So the first one is 2581 Fairgrounds Road, this little area here. The next one is 2203 Concession 11 South Nottawasaga. Then we have 6205 Concession 6 Sunnydale Township, or Sunnydale. Then we have 2034 Concession 4 Nottawasaga South. Another one we have is 7760 County Road 9. This is the one that actually is not a single family dwelling, it's a barn, and the Conservation Authority has commented on that. So this one, I understand this has been resolved. The concern about a building permit here has been resolved. So I don't think this one is necessary. But again, this is the public meeting stage, so I'll be coming back to you with a planning report on this. Another one is 2531 Creemore Avenue. I have spoken with the owner of this property. He's concerned that the line goes right down his driveway. So we may be looking at shifting this sort of northeast lot line a little bit to the east so that we include the owner's driveway. The next one is 3778 Central Line Road. Then we have 5262 Concession 2 Sunnydale. And then we have a number of sort of backyards that have been put in the EP, but they're not EP anymore. They may be in flood areas or things like that. And certainly all of these that are in the MVCA regulated area would still need permits for all of those things. But we certainly have structures and yards and whatnot here. So we're looking to make that adjustment as well. And so there's a group of them here. And then the other thing we came across was a mapping error, and it's at the Edenville Aerodrome and also at 1180 1516 Side Road. So this one takes a little bit of this was almost one of those ones where we tried to do a bit of research, but we're still not sure. And if anybody knows the answer to this, they can enlighten us, because that would be helpful. But so the mapping error is that we found this historic MA-1 zone, and in the zoning amendments identified as 5195 Highway 26, and roll number as noted there, which is 0400031230. That's actually the restaurant and the office for the aerodrome. Specifically, it is not the remaining lands of the Edenville Airport or the property to the east of it, which is the former Roxas site as well. So that zoning permits all of the MA uses, which is your industrial airport uses. And it also adds a single detached dwelling and a 4-unit apartment dwelling, along with temporary parking on the grass for special events. So we're wondering if that goes back to the date of when the building was a nursing home, a retirement home, and then it transferred over to something else. And then I think it eventually became the restaurant. So we're wondering if it was that in-between time, because it was done in the former Sunnydale zoning bylaw 1553-89, where it was actually institutional. So although we're sort of unclear on the history, we do believe that it's a mapping error and wasn't really intended to cross the entire property. So we are looking to change that. Now, I just will note that we have heard, and you'll hear this in my comments, but we have heard from the owner of 1180 1516 Side Road that she would like to retain the zoning. She doesn't consent to the change to the zoning. I have spoken with the owner of the aerodrome, and he does consent. So, we are looking to work with our partner property owners on this. So we will certainly be considering that. And so this is the two areas that we're talking about here. So this is the Edenville Aerodrome, and this is the little property. Actually, I think this is the little property that it has the restaurant on it. And then the rest of it, we're looking to put into just the straight MA. And we're not touching any of the EP lands. And then for the property next door, 1180, whether or not that's something that comes forward, we'll probably not be recommending bringing that forward, probably leave that. One other thing that we're looking to do is to adjust the environmental protection zone on this property. This was brought to our attention by the property owner at 5560 and also at 5572. Sorry, it was only the one of them that brought it forward, but we thought we would make the adjustment to be more reflective of the current situation. And so we're looking to just sort of shift the lands over so that, this portion of the property will go into the rural zone. And then this whole sort of bubble will shift over to be more accurate with the current condition. So we have existing policy framework, which is a little bit tricky because these are very kind of small details for a local municipality. But basically, the overall housekeeping amendment reduces confusion and ambiguity, and we feel that it's consistent with the provincial policy statement. Also, with places to grow, we're looking to provide for economic activities and serve the needs of our rural residents and area businesses. Our official plan is to further economic development, which promotes employment and business opportunities. And then we also have the Clearview official plan, of course, on economic growth. And, these sorts of things like the aligning the agricultural and the rural requirements is something that I think is beneficial in that regard, and allowing people to have pools and that sort of thing. So our notice went out on May 5th, and that was to the newspapers and also to all of the landowners that have actual amendments here that we're proposing. And we have made available all of the supporting material on our website. We've circulated to the commenting agencies and my contact information. And actually, I think I'm missing a slide, which is the slide that tells you about the comments that we've received. So I will do that now. So we did receive comments from Angelina Williams regarding the 1180-1516 side road. That's the property that's the east of the aerodrome. And she does advise that she does not consent to the rezoning of her property. And then we received also from the Conservation Authority, who advised that they have no objection to items 1 to 12 or 14 to 16. However, they do take exception with the changes to the EP. They particularly have also noted the fact that the one property at 7760 County Road 9 is a barn, and rightfully so. And as I mentioned, that would maybe something that we will be looking at removing when we bring this back to you. But they do mention that there's a number of flood hazards and meander hazards and slope hazards, mostly in these properties, and that's the reason why they're EP. So they have addressed that. They have advised that they do not support, in fact, object to this. They are, I think they're basically calling for us to undertake an environmental impact study. So I will report back to council on this, and we will certainly give it due consideration. And so my contact information is Mara Burton. You can email me at mburton@clearview.ca. And of course, you can call me at 705-428-6230, extension 264. And then just to let you know where we are in the review process, of course, this is the 5th time you've seen this tonight. We're at the public meeting stage. Staff will consider all of the comments received. We will make a recommendation back to council. Council can deny or approve the proposal. And then if there's no appeal period, the decision will come into full force and effect. And I will stop sharing now. If there's any questions, I'm happy.
Thank you, Director. First of all, can the clerk please advise if there's anyone who has provided a request to make an oral submissions that are in the waiting room tonight?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. No members of the public wish to make an oral submission during tonight's public meeting.
Thank you. So I'm going to give council opportunity to ask any questions. Your worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Tamara, I'd like to ask some questions about the lands at 1180, 1516 and the 5403 Highway 26 Edenvale Aerodrome. You know, by making any of these changes or clarifications and in fact, the mapping errors that you and your staff have discovered, none of this has any impact on the current status of the facility as an aerodrome underneath the Federal Act for Transportation. It's licensed as CN8V, which is the Transport Canada designation for the aerodrome. So while I find this interesting that we found some errors and got some correction, and we've heard from some of the owners, keeping it as an MA1 zone basically acknowledges that the federal government aerodrome policies apply. Is this correct, Mara, or is there something I'm missing here?
Nope, you're correct. The MA allows for quite a number of airport-related opportunities and industrial opportunities as well. It doesn't, I don't think in any way it affects the federal regulation of the aerodrome. I don't believe that federal regulation actually does extend to 1180 1516 Side Road. It is my understanding that it's only on the Edenvale Airport property itself, but certainly the zoning bylaw does not affect that designation whatsoever.
Yes, do you have a follow-up question?
Sure. I would encourage you and the staff then to further investigate 1180 as it is in the licensed area of CN8V, and part of runway 26 is actually on those lands. And so because of that, the federal designation does apply to the lands. And that's one of the anomalies of Transport Canada's regulations, is that the lands do not have to fall in the actual ownership of the person who is who has the license. If it's adjacent and the Transport Canada designates it, it becomes designated to the licensee holder, regardless of the ownership of the land. So it's kind of a complicated mess. I've done quite a bit of research on it several years ago when I was working on when I was a board member of the Collingwood Regional Airport Board, and then several years ago when we were dealing with the Roxodus, as you mentioned earlier. So I would encourage you to do some more investigating on that. But as the owner of 1180 has asked for MA1 to remain. It's kind of mute. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Oh, very much. I very much appreciate that. I was not aware of that. So thank you very much.
Anybody else on council have any questions? Councillor McKechnie, you always put your card up when my hand's looking that way.
Well, look this way more often.
Well,
then.
I did look this way first. I went like this, and then I went like that, and then your card pops up.
I swear I'm going to get one of those fingers from the Blue Jays, you know, those blue fingers, and hold it out there.
Please proceed.
So Mara, just for my own clarification, and I think I asked you this question once before, and I don't recall the answer, but you refer to surplus dwelling lots. Is that the same? And that's in the agricultural area. Is that the same as what is termed a retirement lot, where a little sections hacked off a farm for the old farmer to build his house, and then he passes on the farm to his child, his son or daughter?
Amalgamation.
Are we talking the same thing? Retirement lot and a surplus dwelling lot?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor McKechnie, not entirely the same thing. The retiring farmer lot in the province of Ontario took the ability for a farmer, or anyone really, to sever off a farmhouse from an active farm as a retirement lot away. So that was removed in 2005. The only way now that a farmer can take a house off is through a farm amalgamation. So they have to actually basically own two properties or merge two properties together. And then they would be able to declare one of the houses surplus to their needs, or the house on one of the properties surplus to their needs, and then ask for it to be severed. Now, if there is a retiring farmer who wants to remain on the farm, then that's one way of doing it. And they could certainly do that. They could live in that farmhouse, or they could buy a house in the, that's existing. But the retiring farmer lot is no longer. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So if an old, well, doesn't have to be old, but if a farmer wants to retire and wants to pass his farm on to, one of his children or her children, then they can no longer just sever off a lot and build a house for themselves and pass the farm on to their children. Okay.
That's correct.
And that was at 2005, you say?
Yes, 2005 that stopped. And I think the reason for that is because over time you sort of get a domino effect, where you have a house severed off and the retained farm, and then you have a house severed off and the retained farm, and a house severed off and the retained farm, and it just goes like that, over the years. And suddenly, we have a lot of houses and a lot of receptors. So
mine is one of them. So, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. Is there anybody else? Any other members of council? I look both ways. Okay, going once, going twice. This concludes the public meeting with respect to file number 2022-033ZB, housekeeping amendment of this evening's agenda. We thank all who attend and provide comments for their interest in this matter. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application, and report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. No decision made tonight. This concludes the public meeting portion of this agenda, and I pass the chair back to his worship, Mayor Measures.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Again, you did a great job. Members of council, we have nothing really remaining as far as the business of council other than the bylaw to confirm. So I'll read that. I look for a mover and seconder. Recommendation being resolved that bylaw 22-35, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the May 25, 2022 special council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 25th day of May, 2022. I'm going to look to the right because I looked to the left earlier. We're going to go with Walker and Lamers. And thank you for your mover and seconder. Any questions, members? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much, council. We have our adjournment. Just prior to adjournment, I just want to remind that we will be back at council on Monday, the 30th. And then later on that week, Music, Market and Parket on Thursday night. Hope to see you all there. Mark it in your calendar. The first one for the season. Members of council, the motion to adjourn. Recommendation be it resolved that council meeting be adjourned at, this is 7:54. Is that correct? 7:54? That looks great. I'll look to the left. Councillor Broderick. To the right, Councillor Deneen. Those in favor? And we'll consider the meeting adjourned. And I get to use the